Chapter 18, Bar Talk, from JE2US-A Novel. Suzy took a long drag on her weed. She liked to foster a low-grade high when she was wiping down the bar at the Neon Cathedral. It was a ritual, as close as she got to religion. Actually, she had bought into a hazy brand of faith for a while. It was a loosely organized flock called Transcendence, Nirvana for the wasted. Live high, stay high was their unspoken motto. The only commandment etched on their tablets of stone was, "Thou shalt not come down." Becoming unstoned was the only sin. Before she bought the bar, she would sometimes say, "Man made beer, God made pot. Who do you trust?" She had actually spent a night in jail during her college years when weed was still illegal. She had been protesting at a political rally and yelled out, "Senator, you're full of shit. But you are right about one thing. The legalization of Mary Jane could lead to more harmful substances, like alcohol and taxes." She flipped him off and was promptly ushered to the slammer. That was then. This is now. Ever since she took on the Neon, her vice of choice was hops, not grass. And Suzy had mellowed considerably since her college days. She often said the Neon Cathedral had saved her life. Her first years out of college were a blur of mushrooms and coke. It wasn't until she found the old church with its stained glass and statues that she found the resolve to get clean. Well, kind of clean. Sometimes I wondered if Bartholomew had spent too much time transcending as well, frying half of his brain cells. But then there were other times when I thought he showed more intelligence than the rest of us. One day he said, "There is no genius without a mixture of madness." Probably. Suzy took one more drag as she put the finishing touches on her talk. She flipped the switch to turn on the Mender of Broken Hearts sign above the bar and remotely lit the oversized gas fireplace in the corner. This was going to be the most personal of her sermonettes. It was going to be autobiographical, her story, her heartbreak. She had always pushed for honesty, expecting it from others. So she thought maybe it was time to come clean about who she was, how she had gotten here, and what she was still struggling with. She had notes for this talk, something she had never used, but this was going to be more difficult than the others. The cathedral started filling at 5. With the advanced popularity of Jesus and the awareness that the Neon Cathedral was his home away from home, getting a seat was becoming a hot ticket. Business was booming. Suzy's alcohol sales had doubled in the past month. She had even considered a cover charge. She knew that whatever it was, there were people who would be willing to pay it. Especially on Tuesday nights, when there was a good chance they'd get to hear the Minneapolis Messiah. But Suzy, true to her roots, a woman of the people, figured that if Jesus didn't charge to perform, then she wouldn't charge them to see him. Another thing had changed at the Neon. There were more and more slaves showing up. With the tribe all sporting fresh numbers, there seemed to be a tacit approval for their kind at the cathedral. Suzy had mixed feelings about this. Slaves didn't drink in huge quantities, and you couldn't upsell them to the premium bourbons and whiskeys, or any other high-priced booze for that matter. They were a beer and nachos crowd. But interestingly, they tipped well. Maybe it was a kinship for those who served. Either way, it didn't matter. The Neon Cathedral had become a tourist destination. Even in December, when there was nothing to celebrate except maybe the winter solstice, the crowds kept lining up outside the cathedral. Everybody who was anybody had to be there. The tribe had a permanently reserved table for months now. Everybody knew which was theirs, and the tables within earshot were wrestled over. At 7:30, Suzy clanged the bell and announced, "Stop talking and start drinking, you imbeciles." She laughed. Tequila shots to warm you on a cold night, 2 for 1. And tonight, all night, in honor of Father John, free beer for slaves. A roar went up from half of the crowd, including our table. She quickly followed with, Jesus, that doesn't include you and your minions. You're just wannabes. Hear, hear, yelled Maddie. Get that girl a beer, yelled Suzy to one of the servers. There was a TV camera in the back corner of the room. Since the press conference, Jesus was now a full-blown celebrity. The paparazzi shadowed us everywhere we went. Suzy with a gut-level hatred for them, struck a deal with an independent media company to have one camera in her bar for Tuesday nights. No other media, no reporters. They all had to buy the feed from her. She often thanked Jesus for her retirement plan and then promptly told the media where to go. The broadcast had been covered by countless cable networks, but tonight it was debuting on the government-sanctioned feed, the State Media Network, the most watched channel in the country. The SMN was the mouthpiece for the state, propagandizing with flair, but even they could not resist the ratings bonanza that was the Minneapolis Messiah. Suzy wondered if the president would be watching tonight. She took another pull on the doobie, trying to still the slight jitter in her hands. Popularity had led to a constant queue of ornery customers outside who negotiated, begged, and bribed to get in. Suzy's team of newly hired bouncers held them at bay, waiting for someone from inside the Neon to leave, the likelihood of which was nil. She had hung a large screen TV just under the stained glass window outside so they could be part of the action from a distance. She had a whole separate staff of servers out there, serving pints to the disgruntled outsiders. Sebastian had never come back since Jesus' insurance story had shamed him. But you can be sure he was watching tonight from the safety of his office. The networks had asked Suzy to start promptly at 9 so it would track with their schedules. At 9:03 precisely, intentionally, Suzy was introduced by her DJ. And now, live from the Neon Cathedral, I give you the Buddha Vista of no bullshit, the sorceress of booze and buzz, the high priestess of hotness. Ladies and gentlemen, slave and free, I give you the one, the only, Suzy. Suzy stepped behind the pulpit to cheers and whistles. Suzy, Suzy, Suzy. She now wished she had asked her DJ to downplay her intro, since it wasn't going to be one of her rally the rabble shit shaker messages. Nobody knew what she had planned. She had told no one, not even Jesus. She wondered how he would respond, what his rebuttal to her story would look like. Suzy stood, smiling at the crowd. When they quieted enough to hear her, she said, "You know what? I love you knuckleheads." The crowd cheered and pounded mugs on their tables. Through the din, I saw something different in her eyes. She really meant it. She did love us. Her sermons weren't just performances. They were her true gut beliefs. And she had been offering them to us as a gift, her best understanding of how to navigate life. She was a spiritually curious soul, always, ever on a quest to understand even a smidgen more of why we are here. Yeah, she downplayed it with her one-liners and sloganeering, but most of us who knew her were convinced that she was trying to figure out the answers to the big questions. And when she did think she found something, her first inclination was to share it. Now she cleared her throat. I haven't been totally honest with you. That cocked a few heads. I get up here week after week and work you up into a lather behind my live well, sin well philosophy. And yes, I do believe it. But I have to admit that it doesn't leave me without questions. She shifted behind the pulpit. My mother was a hooker. She locked me in hotel bathrooms all over this city so I wouldn't see things. My dad was a good man, but he gave up on both of us when I was 6. I don't blame him. Mom was an optimist. She was convinced things were going to get better. We were always just 2 Johns away from a better life. She told me, Suze, when you see something you want, you better grab it right now, because in 10 minutes, it won't be there. She was right, you know. Good doesn't hang around waiting for the indecisive. She died when I was 16. Accidental drug overdose, they said. I don't think it was accidental. She looked at death and saw a better life, so she grabbed it. For 10 years, I grabbed at everything that felt good. I even tried grabbing death twice, but he's a slippery little shit. I glanced over and saw Peter transfixed on Suzy. He loves her. I could see it tattooed all over his face. When I found this place, I found you, and you helped me find me. This place gave me purpose, a reason to get up in the morning, a reason to be. For a while, I thought I found a family, you, my family, or as close as I was going to get to one. But then I would look around the room for a face, a smile that really knew me. I looked and I looked for years. She paused. How many of you knew any of that stuff about me before tonight? Silence. Sometimes I think we just come here full of holes. People have shot us through. Life has screwed us over. So we drink, we laugh, we drink, we talk, we drink. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for drinking. In fact, I wish you slaves would drink less, and the rest of you richies, go ahead, get sloppy drunk. She laughed a bit, then continued. But the drinking doesn't fill the holes. It runs out and we have to drink more. She looked around. The crowd was very uncomfortable. This was not the Suzy they knew or thought they knew. Doesn't it sometimes feel hopeless? She leaned back on her heels. I could see the wheels turning. She had more to say. Hope is a shadowy thing. It's not something we're born with like 2 arms and 2 legs. It seems to ebb and flow through life. Some mornings we wake up with an abundance. Some mornings we're scrounging around for crumbs. When you're short on it, you can't go to Target and pick up a refill. You can't go to Home Depot, buy a couple of 2x4s, a few nails, and reconstruct it. Sometimes it seems to rebuild itself through strings of good circumstances, but really, in life, you can't count on circumstances. Hope is a fire. Life is a firefighter with a squirt gun. He occasionally doesn't douse our hopes, he just squirts away at the edges. Tss, tss, tss. So where does that leave us? She looked around the room as if waiting for an answer. I don't know either. Until I find answers to the questions, I guess it leaves us here. The Neon Cathedral. As close as we'll get to being known. She paused. So, drink, laugh, and get laid. Keep the booze flowing so nobody can see your holes. It's not a good answer, but it's the only one I've got. She looked around the room, stopping at Peter, knowing he was as close as she had ever gotten to love. She raised her arm and with minimal conviction said, "Live well, sin well." The crowd barely joined in on the line.